Welcome back to Heroes Behind the Badge. I'm your host, Dennis Collins. In part one of our conversations with former Watertown Police Chief Ed DeVeau, we heard the incredible story of the Watertown shootout, how 3 local police officers faced off against the Boston Marathon bombers in a 7 to 9 minute firefight involving hundreds of rounds and multiple explosive devices. When the smoke cleared, the older brother was dead, and his younger brother had escaped into the night, wounded but dangerous. What followed was one of the largest manhunts in American history, and an unprecedented decision that brought an entire major metropolitan area to a standstill. Now, Chief DeVeau continues the story, taking us through the tense hours that followed the massive search operation and the dramatic conclusion that finally brought the Boston Marathon bombers to an end. This is part 2 of our exclusive interview with Chief Ed DeVeau here on Heroes Behind the Badge. We often hear stories, and the media does a great job of promoting some of the negative stories about a command of multiple law enforcement agencies. And granted, this was your territory. This was the city of Watertown, but you had people coming in, feds, I'm sure. You had other locals. You had Boston. You had this one, that one. How did the unified command, Ed, work out for this?
It worked out well, Dennis. Surprisingly, we had all been taught that unity of command, and I always thought while I'm sitting in the classroom, I don't see how this is ever going to work.
Right.
But it did work. Like we had in the command post in the very beginning, we had the colonel from the state police, the commissioner from Boston PD, the commissioner from Cambridge, and as the day wore on, more and more people showed up. We went from like 3 or 4 or 5 people in that command post to, we had to post security outside because everybody wanted to get, every politician wanted to get in there and everything like that. So we had probably 30 people in there.
Yeah.
But I will say it worked. The unit community, everybody checked their egos. The FBI agent in charge of Boston area was there, ATF, the U.S. Marshal. So we had a lot of people, but we all worked together. We never had one argument about anything. The only disagreement was we were talking later in the day about lifting the lockdown, and I was totally against it, but it ended up happening. So that was about the only disagreement. But so we worked really close together. The feds come in and gave us some help. ATF came in and said we can bring a dog in that's specially trained, and we think we can catch this guy.
Great.
Let me review the timeline for our audience. 12:30 a.m. This confrontation occurs. The shootout occurs. Lasts 7 to 9 minutes. One of the brothers, the younger one, manages to escape the scene. He's somewhere in Watertown. You don't know where, and he's not found until 6:30 p.m. On that day, April 19th. So, help us now understand how you ended up finding him, and how you ended up taking him down.
Okay, so we got confused because the ATF came in with this dog about 3:30 a.m. and they get the scent, the bloodhound, and they said the dog's name is Super Dog. He'll track anything. So Super Dog came in and went out down the street into Belmont, into Cambridge. And so we got misled, Craig, that we thought he had gotten outside of the perimeter. So now the federal agencies are going back to where his college was. They're sending in Black Hawk helicopters to pick up some of the SWAT teams that we have at Watertown to go to the college. It was kind of chaotic, but managed chaotic. And so the day played on. I mean, at 5:30 in the morning, we had a conversation with the Boston mayor, the governor of Massachusetts, my city manager, and a few others. And they said, "What do you guys want to do?" We said, "We need everybody to stay home today." And they said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, we got to pretend it's a snow day just like I think anybody that lived anywhere snow, everybody stays home and the streets are empty. We said we need people to do that, and the mayor of Boston was against it. But we kind of convinced them once we said that we need the streets open for law enforcement. So we went across the street at 6 a.m. and told everybody to stay home, and people listened to us. So we were able to during that time break up the city into 5 grids where we had the perimeter, and we're doing the grid searches. Unbeknownst to me, the President Obama was calling the governor of Massachusetts saying, you can't keep a city locked down. You need to open it up. So by 5:30, 6 o'clock, they lift the lockdown and everybody starts kind of clearing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Against
so at 6 p.m.
wishes, I guess. Yeah, against your wishes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And at 6 p.m., we're talking just about Watertown, right? We haven't locked down other neighboring towns, have we?
Oh no! At that lockdown at 5:30 in the morning, they kept saying to us, "How sure are you he's in your perimeter?" And I felt strongly, but all we could say was about 80% because of the bloodhound that misled us. So then it was decided we're not. The lockdown is going to be all the surrounding communities, so including Cambridge, including Boston, so everybody in Greater Boston. You have to understand how that the marathon's a big deal. Everybody was scared, like the bombings, then a police officer killed, so that everybody stayed home. If you go back, your viewers go back and look at any photos of Boston during that time, it's eerie. A Friday afternoon, and there's no one on the streets of Boston, Cambridge. So people listened to us, and then it came time. Okay, you've searched the grids, and we gotta do something. So we agreed that we still have other offices because my department was kind of exhausted. Everybody just came to work, so we needed. Okay, we're going to go this whole weekend. We're going to have state police, surrounding communities supporting us, SWAT teams rotate in and out. And that was the plan. And then at 6:30 p.m., we get a call from a Watertown resident that had a boat in his backyard.
Right, right. And he apparently thought something was askew with that boat. That caused him to double check, right?
That's right. He was sitting in his home, he looking out, and his boat was shrink wrapped in his backyard. And it was a windy day, and the straps were blowing around on his boat. And he says, geez, he couldn't wait to get out to his boat because he wanted to strap those down.
Right.
So when the lockdown got lifted, he went out, and there was, like I said, shrink wrap, and then there was a zipper on it. So he tried to tighten them up, and he was having trouble. So he was going to go into the boat. So he's up on a step ladder, unzips this, and looks in. And he can see blood on the boat.
Wow.
And he doesn't even register him with it just yet. He goes, I was on the boat the other day, and he's looking at his hands. Did I cut myself? And then all of a sudden he sees these feet sticking out, somebody with a hoodie on laying there. So he runs back in his house, calls 911, and that's how things started to go into motion on that.
Wow. Did he think that this is interesting that he finds the terrorist, the younger brother, in the boat, bleeding? Obviously, he was wounded during the shootout. Did the person in the boat, the terrorist, did he realize he had been discovered? It's kind of weird that he would have remained there if he knew people were onto him.
He was so lethargic. Dave Henneberry, who was the person who's looking in his boat, he thought he was dead. So so we put out this notice, man in the boat, blood on the boat, 71 Franklin Street. And that was like, for the law enforcement audience, that was probably a mistake because all 3,000 cops in Watertown heard that at the same time. And you can imagine what happens. Everybody's heading there, but only my officers know where 71 Franklin Street is. So they're the first ones to arrive. Everybody else is just going to the Charles River, and I'm sitting the thing, and some of the other people in the command post said, "Oh, it's a boat on the river." I go, "No, it's not. I said it's landlocked. It's just in his backyard." And so my officers got there first, and Dave says to one of the officers, "Come on, I'll show you. He's dead in the boat." And they said, "No, no, no. You go in your house. Let us look into this and everything like that." And slowly, the cavalry shows up on Franklin Street. And again, we had, the lessons learned here. We had too many officers unsupervised around the boat. We, from the command post, we thought we had it locked down. We got the state police helicopter telling us there's somebody in the boat. He just moved his left hand. His right foot just moved. We got the Boston SWAT team. We get the FBI hostage and rescue team. So we got the boat surrounded, but we couldn't see from the command post that all these other cops are all around it. So that was a little chaotic, trying to get that organized. In the meantime, they're yelling at him in the boat, and he comes to, and they're trying to tell him to come out, and he takes. There's somebody up in Dave Henneberry's second floor looking down at the boat, and he sees what he thinks is a rifle, a black pole poking through the shrink wrap. But it turned out it was just a gaff on the boat. But the state police guy shot, and then a lot of people shot, and that boat got shot up pretty good. He was in a position on the boat where he really didn't get hit. Maybe one.
I've seen that FBI at FBI headquarters. They actually had the boat, and I can verify the fact there were quite a number of bullet holes in that boat. It was shot up pretty good.
Yes,
And now, one question I had, Ed, was you and the other people at the command post. I suppose you were not on the scene at this point. You were far away trying to direct orders at the time to all the officers on the scene.
Yeah. When it first happened, yes. And then, so now we have a kind of a standoff. And so I left the command post and went down. I just wanted to see it from the ground. And this was after all the shots had been fired, but we got the officers to stand down. And the FBI hostage and rescue team had they were the freshest of all the SWAT teams. They had just been on scene for a couple of hours. So I was with the commander of that, and he said, we're trying to keep the lines of communication open. And they had already shot like 2 or 3 flashbangs into the boat. So I'm thinking, like, this guy in the boat, he can't hear anything at this point. But they shot like 2 more flashbangs, brought in the bear, a heavy armor-proof, and kind of ripped the shrink wrap off the boat. He ended up standing up. We yelled to him, and he could hear enough. Lift your shirt up, because we were the same thing. We were afraid that he had a bomb strapped to his chest. And when he lifted his shirt up, then he was taken into custody. He had one of the flashbangs had hit him in the neck, and so he had some fairly serious injuries, but not life-threatening injuries.
Wow.
And is it fair to say that the injuries included a number of gunshot wounds from the initial shootout?
Yes, we realized that, and he probably got shot not behind the vehicle when he came through and rammed the cruiser. Then all the people were shooting. Yeah, so I think he got shot a number of times coming through that roadblock, if you will. And we knew that when we were doing the search, because we've behind a couple of houses we found blood and everything, but we weren't able to do it, and the boat was just kind of just barely outside the perimeter, so we missed it, but it all ended up okay. No one got hurt there at the shootout by the boat, except for the bad guy.
Right.
How far away was the boat where he ended up being arrested from the initial shootout scene?
Probably 3/4 of a mile, so not that far.
Somehow that was outside of the
Right.
perimeter. That's interesting. Yeah.
Interesting.
Pretty close.
What
amazing story.
Yeah,
I have a quick question going back a ways. The older brother who ended up dying at the hospital soon after the shootout, the guy that ran out of ammunition and threw his gun at one of your officers, he died. I'm just curious, did he die from being run over by his brother, or did he die from bullet wounds suffered during the shootout?
I never got a straight answer on that. I think a combination of both of them. Um, there was some thought like, should we charge his brother with murder for running over his brother? And, but, that never took place. But he certainly, he probably would have survived if his brother didn't run him over. So,
interesting.
Yeah, well,
and to wrap up, a couple of last questions I had. One is, and we need to let our audience know, for those that may not already know, there was a trial, obviously, of the younger brother, the mass murder, and he was sentenced to death. He is now awaiting execution. It may take years more. Who knows? I mean, the death penalty process is such a slow-moving system. But the aftermath, Ed, that's what I'm most interested in. Obviously, a lot of courage, especially by your officers, on display, a lot of innovative techniques that were used that saved officers' lives and that maybe ended the bloodshed. In the aftermath, you talk about the chaos. Any lessons learned from this whole incident that maybe led to changes in your department or in other departments?
well, sure. I mean, the patrol rifle that I talked about that John couldn't get out. What we realized when we really looked into it was that patrol rifle rattled around. And so one of the other sergeants had taken the strap and shoved it in tight so it wouldn't rattle. And also, when we put them in the cruisers, I said to them, hey, put them in there. Don't touch them unless you need them. And that was a big mistake. They didn't have the muscle memory under the rest, how to take that in and out. And then the strap obviously didn't help. I think it almost made it impossible. But so then after that, we changed our procedures where, at first it was daily, taking the patrol rifle out after roll call. Then it became weekly. And, so now we do it on a regular basis. So that was one of the lessons learned. The other one was when we said over the radio, 71 Franklin Street, after 9/11, we have great radio communication, but we should have just kept that information to ourselves and not broadcasted it and just send the SWAT teams in. We should have realized that all the cops were going to hear it and they're all going to take off and try to go down there. So those are some of the lessons learned. I would say that it's great that people come and try to support us, but if you come from another department and you're unsupervised, you're not a lot of help to us. Like if you're not going to take orders, because when we were down at the boat, there was a lieutenant from the state police saying, get back, we have a SWAT team. And no one listened to him unless you were a state trooper. On the other side, there was a Boston superintendent doing the same thing. And all the Boston cops stopped, but anybody else from another department just ran right by him. And we were trying to stress now that if you're outranked, no matter where the person is from, and they tell you to do something, we got to train officers to be able to take those orders, regardless.
Right. That's a
amazing
great
story. Hey, Dennis, something I had never mentioned to you, I don't think, but Ed and I go back a ways after this incident. Some of his officers were honored as Officers of the Month at the Memorial Fund. And Ed was very kind, and this is important. He donated the handcuffs that were used to arrest the older terrorist brother to the National Law Enforcement Museum, so that we can tell this story for generations to come. That's an important artifact that helps us tell the story of what happened on April 19th in Watertown, Massachusetts, when the two Boston Marathon bombers, these mass murders, were finally caught and died. One was captured soon after. And it's an amazing story, but it really personifies, I think, the courage and the creativeness. You talked about all the different ways that these officers dealt with a very chaotic situation and how they prevailed and captured these two terrorists. It's an amazing story. I'm so glad we'll be telling it at the National Law Enforcement Museum for generations to come. And Ed, from me personally, and I know Dennis has some thoughts. We call this Heroes Behind the Badge, this podcast, and I can't imagine more heroic action than what happened in Watertown, Massachusetts on the night of April 19th. And then your effective leadership that helped capture this terrorist who had killed many people. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm very proud that you came on as a guest.
Absolutely, Chief. I mean, this is what this podcast is all about, heroes. I don't think anybody that knows this story, and now, like you said, you told us things we never knew. And those were quite interesting because, you know what? You even made a comment, no one, not even myself, has ever been trained to handle what we had to handle that night. So training only takes you so far. So it comes down to good judgment. It comes down to leadership. It comes down to courage. And so I guess that's a credit to you and your department for hiring the kind of people that have that ability. They can go above and beyond their training when necessary. And had they not done that, God forbid what could have happened that night. So congratulations to you and your team for hiring these gentlemen. You mentioned Jeff and John and Joey, and I'm sure there were others, but those seem to be the three major guys who really got this job done under. And the other thing I take from it, you never know. You're a small town police department, 55 officers. You never know when calamity is going to call at your door. You don't know. You couldn't have prepared for that. In fact, your guys didn't even know at the time who they were dealing with, but they dealt with it and they handled it and they used innovative techniques to overcome these guys. So I think this is a great tribute to what it means to be a cop, a real cop, somebody who knows what to do and who also knows what to do in a situation they've never been trained for. Great story. And I thank you for telling it. I love your comment. We caught those guys actually that day. We won in Watertown. And I don't think winning is by accident, Ed. I think it's on purpose. And congratulations to you for having the kind of department, hiring the kind of people that know how to get the job done. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being with us on Heroes Behind the Badge. That's going to conclude this episode. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Dennis.